FEAR is a first-person horror shooter game developed by Monolith Productions. That makes this the second horror game by Monolith that was released in the year 2005 and got a shit sequel that I am reviewing here. It's weird that this has happened twice. Well, I did say horror game, but the horror elements are way behind the action elements in both the amount of attention they get and also how good they are. The developers of FEAR stylized the game's combat after the Teahouse scene in John Woo's Hard Boiled, and making the player feel like an action movie hero was a priority. So, did they succeed? In FEAR, Armacham Technology Corporation or ATC has developed a unit of supersoldiers controlled by the psychic commander Paxton Fettel. As we can see, nothing can go wrong with the setup of a psychic commander controlling a whole battalion. So Fettel goes rogue, takes over Armacham's headquarters and kills everyone in there. You're part of a covert special forces unit, FEAR, and are deployed to control the crisis and kill Fettel. And that's how the game starts. You're dropped in the middle of it with the goal of finding Fettel and eliminating him, severing the psychic link to the replicas. So let's just get into the game. The fights in FEAR are bloody and brutal, with particle effects flying all over the screen. The fights still look great, especially if you are using bullet time. The game in general looks pretty good for its time. It's a game released in 2005, but the dynamic lighting still prevents the game overall from looking that aged. The textures themselves are well done, but there is little variety among them. I would say the areas look very similar throughout, with the exception of a few levels. Especially the large portion of office levels in the middle can get kinda boring. But the game did spice things up with levels like Urban Decay, which is my favorite level, in no small part due to its dilapidated urban aesthetic. The last part of the game also looks significantly different as well. But there's another thing that makes the game look better: the effects. In combat, the game looks amazing. The effects move on to making the weapons feel distinct and great. The assault rifle just seems to shred enemies. At close range, the shotgun turns enemies into mulch. The penetrator pins replicas to walls with these huge bullets. And the Particle 7 weapon, I don't even have to explain. The weapons in FEAR are great. The shotgun itself is legendary for being one of the best in any game. And I agree, the shotgun is amazing. That doesn't mean that the other weapons are far behind either. The Particle 7 weapon especially is kind of broken with the fact that it can basically one-shot most of the standard replicas. The grenades are also great with their explosion effect, and you can shoot them in midair for the extra cool factor. Also, you can't forget the other weapon in the game, martial arts. Well, you have two options, slide kick or bicycle kick. And when they land, it's extremely satisfying. Landing melee hits is not the most useful move and is kind of hard to do mid combat, but it's extremely cool. You might think that having bullet time plus extremely strong weapons might offset the difficulty of this game, but the enemies have the exact same weapons as you do, meaning you will die quick. The enemies are never alone, they work together and will overwhelm you if you are not careful. Like, you can see in the background how they generally react. The AI is good. They will flank you, jump through windows, do various other things. They won't charge at you. They will use cover and try to take you by surprise. I would say that if you are slightly familiar with shooters, then the best way to play this game is on hard. You will die, but it adds the extra difficulty needed to fully appreciate this game. Enemies have taken me by surprise a lot. I would be looking in one direction and they would flank and come from another side. The level design facilitates multiple routes for the enemies to go through, so you have to check behind your back a lot of the time. There's also different types of enemies. Sometimes the heavy shows up on the battlefield and demands your attention. It's the only enemy that is an actual bullet sponge, and that makes sense for this as well. Well, the heavy and the turrets. The turrets are annoying. You can mostly turn them off from an electrical box or some shit nearby, but they're just tedious to fight. There's also Armacham forces somewhere through the game, and they're just meh. They don't sound as good as the replicas, they sound more like they're playing a shooter in Discord VC.
Keep your mouth shut. Shut up. Quiet down. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut the fuck up.
Ironically, the replicas sound way better, even though they're mind control super soldiers. They seem to have way more personality. You hear them speak, and it's pretty detailed, makes them feel smarter too. And you will hear them before you see them. They're surprisingly talkative. Fear is in general pretty quiet most of the time with some ambient music. Combat breaks this, and combat sounds great. I have already shown snippets of combat, so I won't spend much more time on it here. Sometimes, before some encounters, music changes to something more noticeable. And sometimes the music does this. Isn't this supposed to be a horror game? Overall, the music and sounds are great, but the sounds creatures during the horror segments are annoying and ear piercing. They add nothing.
She is a prisoner, floating in darkness, like the unborn.
The fights are separated by downtime where you explore the places. It won't give you anything much visually, but it's worth not rushing to the next fight. Grenades, weapons, and medkits are a given, but you will also find health and reflex upgrades. They're pretty important as the combat ramps up. Other than that, you will find messages and data. and data, which gives more insight into whatever is going on. I have a small annoyance with the messages though. I don't like that sometimes there will be multiple messages and you have to just stand there and listen to a series of them instead of listening while exploring. You will also come across NPCs while exploring, like this guy, and sometimes you will rejoin with your team for like 10 seconds. Another small annoyance I have with the flashlight, like there's no reason for it to run out. It doesn't seem to be an important mechanic in the slightest. It recharges fast enough that there's no real danger. And then there's the horror segments. I never found them remotely scary. Some of them a bit creepy, yes, but most of them are like just why the horror doesn't work, and the reason is simple. They never made me feel vulnerable. I don't even know how it's possible to make a protagonist with extremely good reflex, that is bullet time, and arsenal to make the American military blush feel vulnerable. I never felt in danger in this part, so they just straight up fell flat. And so many of these segments slow down your movement speed to a crawl as well. But not all of them ended in a failure. Some did catch me by surprise, even though it was very temporary. I will end this on a good note though. The scares are not actually meaningless. They do mean something. And to see what they mean, let's get into the story. The way Alma was treated is pretty fucking dark. ATC began to experiment on Alma, causing her to become so scared and angry that she would attack ATC's employees. Realizing Alma could never be controlled, she was put into an induced coma 2 days before her 8th birthday, with the intention of using her as a breeder to create psychic prototypes, because she herself was a psychic. Fettel is revealed to be Alma's son. It's mentioned when Fettel was 10, she telepathically linked with him, resulting in many deaths, after which Alma was killed. Alma's spirit is now awakened as well and is controlling Fettel. Another twist that is revealed is that you are actually another one of Alma's sons, which is not a great twist. It ties back to what Alma was trying to communicate via visions though, so I'm not really that against it since it didn't come out of nowhere. But the fact that the other characters don't react to that, and even ATC security who are there to cover up the event seem unaware, makes it kind of weak. Other than that, Fear story is alright. But it doesn't end there. There is two other expansions that Fear got, Extraction Point and Perseus Mandate. I need to talk about them. I don't have too much to say about them, and for different reasons. First, Extraction Point. Extraction Point is amazing. Everything I love about Fear turned up to 12. The areas look better and more varied than the base game. Like it starts in a church. The combat is harder and I feel the arenas are better as well. And Extraction Point managed to scare the fuck out of me. I wouldn't speak too much about it, it's just that it's great. I think in many ways better than the main game. If you liked what I said about Fear, definitely give Extraction Point a shot. But the increased number of horror set pieces might be off-putting. Now Perseus Mandate. Look, I haven't been able to finish Perseus Mandate in my replay. It's bad. You fight with a squad in this expansion and the fights feel tedious. Overall presentation has dropped with texture looking really unpolished, the lighting not done well, and this has the feel of a mod rather than an expansion. I would give it a pass. I don't think I have anything else to say. So in conclusion, Fear has a great gameplay loop. The other parts are not that strong, but the gameplay and everything surrounding it is just something no other game can offer still. It's a must play if you like shooters. The Fear franchise is dead with no hope of coming back, and you can buy Fear 1 on Steam without a bundle. So acquire Fear. How I don't know. Anyways, I will likely be reviewing an RPG next. It's been a while since the last one.